Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This is going to go over the Geico 500 at Talladega Super Speedway on Sunday, June 21st at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And let me just say, I am very excited for this race. I love Talladega, one of my most favorite tracks on the entire series. That, Daytona, Bristol, Martinsville. I love short tracks and I love super speedways, so I am very excited. I'm sure you guys are as well. There's huge prize pools this weekend, so I'm really looking forward to it. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players, and I cover other sports as well whenever they decide to return. So if you're going to be coming back each and every single week, you might as well hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And looking at my YouTube analytics, I know that 60% of the people watching these videos have not yet subscribed. So if you have the time, I really do appreciate it. And if you're going to follow me over on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPennell16. You can follow me over on IG at CPen16. Don't really post fantasy stuff there, but I get less notifications on Instagram, so I'll probably reply to you quicker if you do want to message me over on there, or just follow me, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And if you want to support my content over on Patreon, that is always much appreciated. We're close to 300 members now. I think we're like at 275, which is insane. Never thought NASCAR would get that popular, so I really do appreciate everyone that does support my content. Put a lot of extra work into that over there. I do preview my spreadsheet for you guys over on YouTube, but there's a lot more stuff that goes into it, and I really put a lot of time into that. So I do appreciate everyone that does support me over on Patreon. And if you want to, you hit that link in the description below, and it takes you to a page that looks like this. And it's basically just my join Patreon page, and it tells you everything you get access to. It's $10 a month. It's like $2 a race. And when we had midweek races, it was less than that. So I'm not charging an arm and leg here. I don't think. I do put a lot of time into it. So you get access to my NASCAR model, my cheat sheet, my data sheet, my Discord chat, where you can ask me all the questions you want at any time of the day. Good group of people in there. No one's hostile. So you just come in there, chill. I mean, at any point of the week, talk about other sports if you want, whatever. You can join if you want. My projections, my core plays, my weekly article, my tier rankings, my GVP exposures, which I can't be more transparent than my GVP exposures. It's exactly where my money's going. I usually max the big tournament, so you know exactly where my money's going. Can't be more transparent than that. Don't give out lineups, though, so... But GVP exposures, I think you can come pretty close to who I like the most. Then my power rankings, which is just a statistical-based model on what the model likes for rankings that week. So it does place differential ranking, dominator rankings, so all that good stuff. Links available in the description below. And if you're not interested, that's okay. Let's just get to the preview portion of this video. And as always, I forgot to mention when the live stream is going to be. Pretty sure it's going to be on Sunday at 11 a.m. I know it's Father's Day, so I don't know how big of an issue that's going to be for everybody. Hopefully it's not an issue and you can still tune in and watch. Hey, maybe you can watch together if you both like NASCAR. But probably going to be on Sunday at 11 a.m. as per usual. I will tweet it out if that changes, or I'm just going to tweet it out when it's going to be anyway. And then I'll have it previewed on YouTube as well. Although I messed up the time last week, so hopefully I don't do that again. But anyway, preview. This is pretty important this week. I know probably a lot of people just skip to the preview, and looking at when the watch time is in my videos, I realize people just skip to the driver-by-driver breakdown. But the preview is going to be pretty important this week because strategy is very important at a super speedway. It's the most important thing, and that's why I think it's one of the biggest edges in NASCAR DFS. Has the edge got a little bit lesser? Is that the word I'm trying to say? I guess, yes, people are starting to catch on, but still not enough. I mean, there's still ownerships that just don't make sense to me at super speedways, because we should be stacking the back at super speedways, and people still aren't doing it. So there's still a bit of an edge there. I mean, has it gone away a little bit? Sure, people are getting smarter, but there's still an edge here. And like I said, strategy is very important here. So after I talk about the little preview here, make sure you pay attention, because I don't want you guys to make bad lineups. So this is the Geico 500. There's your outline of the track. It is a huge track. It's 2.66 miles in length. There's 188 laps here, which means there's only 141 Dominator points, which means Dominator points are not going to be that important. And because there's just only 141 Dominator points, and Dominators just really aren't important at Talladega anyway, because the fast laps, which are worth more than the laps led, are spread throughout the entire field. You cannot project fast laps here. If anyone's telling you they can project fast laps, they're lying to you. You just can't. Laps led, yeah, there's guys that usually just tend to lead laps here. You can project laps led to a degree here, like guys like Logano, Keselowski, Stenhouse, Elliott, Kurt Busch, whatever. They like to lead laps here, so I would imagine they will get up front at some point and lead laps. But that's only 0.25 points, and they're spread throughout the entire field, so they're just not that important this week. So Dominators, don't really care at all about them. You can target one in your lineup, but other than that, not too important because of the way this track races. So I have in my notes here, we're going to try to go one by one here. Hopefully I don't get a little bit messy because there's a lot to talk about. But first off, this is a plate race. Now, I know it's not technically a restrictor plate anymore, but that's just what I'm used to calling it. It's more of a tapered spacer now. But just let me call it a plate race because I like calling it that. So I know a lot of you probably don't even know the difference anyway, but a plate race. This means we're not going to have drivers that get 5 seconds ahead of the field. Like, we see that sometimes. Like, I don't know, like a 1.5 mile track, you'll see, Kevin Harvick gets 5 seconds ahead of the entire field. No one's going to catch him. That's not going to happen at Talladega or Daytona. They drive in a big pack, which means everyone's like neck and neck the entire race for the most part. And this leads to side-by-side racing because they're all drafting off of each other. There's a high line, there's a bottom line. And sometimes they'll go single file and it gets pretty boring for a while, but there will be side-by-side racing. They're not going to single file the entire race and let the guy just lead the entire race and win the race because that's just not going to happen. These drivers want to win and they're going to drive aggressive. And this leads to a lot of wrecks, and that's why I like to stack the back here. Stacking the back is the most money thing you can do. If you're looking at past optimal lineups, people that stack the back, they win a lot of money because that's how the optimal lineups look. So this is off the top of my head, but at previous optimal lineups, the averages since 2016, there's been 1.13 drivers starting inside the top 10 on average, one driver from 11 to 20, 2.2 drivers from 21 to 30, and then 1.6 drivers from 31 to 40, if I remember off the top of my head. So as you can see, there's more drivers in the back than there is in the front. And stack the back because I should probably mention that. Sorry, I'm getting a little everywhere, but there's a lot to talk about here. So stacking the back, this means we're playing all the cars in the back. Equipment doesn't really matter much here. You'll see guys like Corey Lajoie cracking the top 10 sometimes. I wouldn't even be surprised if Daniel Suarez gets the top 15, Timmy Hill even. Equipment does not really matter here because these drivers can hang as long as they're in the draft, which I know some of them will lose the draft, which will suck for you a little bit, but still. So why we stack the back is the guys up front, they're aggressive. I mean, one stupid block, or one aggressive block, I should say, or one stupid move can take out the entire field, or half the field. And the guys that are typically doing that are the drivers that are expensive and starting up front, because they're looking for the win. Those guys that are in the back, they know they're not going to win this race more than likely, so they're just trying to grab a strong finish for their sponsor, whatever. So this means that a lot of good cars are going to get torn up, and they're going to score a lot of negative points. So let's say Martin Truex Jr., he's on the pole this week, he's starting up front, which I just said. So if he gets into a wreck and finishes in the 30s, he's going to get around negative 30 points. Meanwhile, if he takes out half the field, all those good cars are going to get in the negative points, which means our back markers, like, I don't know, Ryan Preece or whatever, he can gain 20 spots. He is going to smash those guys. And even if one of their guys in the back crashes first, I remember one Daytona 500, I think it was, I don't know, was it Casey Mears or something like that? He was starting 40th, and then he finished 40th. He was the first guy that crashed, which sucked, but he still scored 4 points. And the guys that started up front and crashed, they got like negative 30, negative 20. So he still outscored them by nearly 30 points. So it's the safest way you can go at these types of track is just to play the guys in the back. It's the safest route, and they also have the highest upside too, because we don't really care too much about dominator points. So stacking the back, it's been the strategy for a while now, and it tends to work pretty much every single race. Now just know if you are stacking the back, you will be in the back of the contest. Like, you'll probably be in last place for most of the day. So don't tweet me mid-race saying this strategy sucks, I'm not going to win any money, because it can change quick. So wait to tweet me that I suck after the race, not mid-race, because I'm telling you right now, most of your laps are probably going to be looking dead until the big one happens, which at Daytona, it happened with like 19 laps to go. So I was pretty much in last place the entire day. But once the big one happened, then a whole bunch of crashes happened at the end, because that's what happens. The drivers tend to get more aggressive and make more bold moves. And then, you work your way back into the money, and it's going to be a roller coaster. So just prepare. There's a lot of ups and downs at super speedways, and it's very, very exciting. So for roster construction, we're looking at, from anyone starting in the 1 through 10, we're looking at 0 to 1 drivers, 2 at the absolute max. From 11 through 20, we want 0 to 3 drivers. Then anyone from 21 through 40, we're going to want 3 to 6 drivers. And then on average, there's been 46,000 salary used per lineup. So it's like $4K left on the table. And leaving money on the table is something you should do at a restrictor play. I know it feels weird. People are going to try to max out their lineups, which I think is very stupid, because if you're trying to max out your lineups, that means you're playing a lot of guys that are starting up front, and that's just not optimal here. I know it feels good to max out your lineup and get a lot of good names in your lineup, but it's just not something you should do at super speedway. So leave money on the table. I mean, you can leave up to $10,000 on the table. You could leave even more if you wanted. I mean, salary is no issue here. Just look to stack the back, and you should be looking good at the end of the day. And I should also mention it's a new rules package here at Dega, and there's no practice or qualifying. So these guys are going to have to figure out at the beginning. I don't know if that means they're going to be more cautious at the beginning or if there's going to be a chaos at the beginning. It could go either way. I feel like they might be more cautious at the beginning, so we might not see the most exciting racing early on, but I feel like they'll figure it out quickly. Listening to Denny Ham on a podcast, and I think it was Kyle Busch, they said they figured it out quick. These drivers are best in the world, they say. So I think they'll be okay. And I think it's going to lessen the horsepower by about 40. They're trying to avoid those Ryan Newman wrecks that we saw at the Daytona 500, which he nearly died. So I think that's pretty much everything for the notes. I'm sorry if that was long-winded, and I'm sorry if I was kind of all over the place, but there's a lot to remember and talk about for this type of track strategy-wise, so hopefully I hit all the points for you guys. But without further ado, I think we can go to the driver-by-driver breakdown. And the driver-by-driver breakdown won't be too in-depth this week because it's basically just the guys that are in the back I like, and the guys that are up front I don't really like. So it's going to be kind of easy as that, but we'll still talk through each and every single driver. And as always, this is kind of my first run throughout the whole slate, so if you want more polished thoughts, they are over on Patreon. So let me just pause this, and then we'll get to the driver-by-driver breakdown. All right, so I should mention, for all the people that just skipped through the entire first 10 minutes of this video and just skipped to the driver-by-driver breakdown, look, I get it, but the preview portion was very important to this track. It's very strategy-heavy, so please go back and listen just so you understand why we're talking the way we are talking about these drivers. But without further ado, let's get into it. So Chase Elliott, or I should mention, the pricing this week, pretty much build whatever you want. I mean, I'm not really just looking to play high-priced drivers this week outside of Christopher Bell. But still, salary, it's no issue at all. So you can make whatever lineup you want, especially if we're stacking the back. Salary does not mean a thing this week, so you don't have to worry about that. But anyway, up top, we have Chase Elliott. He comes in at $10,400. He qualified 11th by virtue of random draw. You guys know what I mean when I say qualified. But at Talladega, he did make an optimal lineup recently. Am I too excited about playing him starting 11th? No. Now, I do think he could potentially win the race. And let me just say, speeds this season, they mean nothing. And it's basically just their qualifying spots this week. So starting 11th, he has the ability to gain spots and get a top 5 and potentially win this race. I mean, this has been a pretty solid track for him. He has won here recently the past 8 races. For our sample size this week, I just looked back the past 10 races at super speedways, so that's the sample size we are using. But he's averaging 28 DraftKings points per race. Not great. And you're going to notice the guys that are averaging the most DraftKings points per race are going to be these cheap guys that are starting in the back. As you can see, the numbers tend to get higher. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of outliers, but the guys that are in the back pretty much score the most DraftKings points per race. I posted a tweet showing you guys who scores the most DraftKings points per race starting spot at Talladega. It wasn't to say you play the guy starting 34th because he scored the most fantasy points. No, I'm just trying to say that all the guys starting in the back have scored the most fantasy points recently. But anyway, Chase Elliott averaging 30 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 13.3. Again, not great, but a lot of these guys crash out of races and it makes their average finish look lower, which I tend to throw away because not everyone's going to crash each race. But at a super speedway, yeah, people are going to crash. So Chase Elliott, I mean, I'm not in love with it. I mean, usually if Chase Elliott's starting 11th and he's 10,400, I'd be all over it. But again, I want guys that are starting in the back. I want to stack the back this week. And Chase Elliott is not in the back, so it makes him a risky play. You can play him in tournaments, but in cash, I would stay away from that. Now, he could win this race, and it'd be a great play. That's why he's reserved for GPPs. In GPPs, I'd be more willing to take stabs at guys up front, but if you're playing cash, I mean, Chase Elliott is a very risky play because he's just as likely to get into a wreck as anybody up here. So, and I do think he'll be pretty high owned just because he's Chase Elliott. People are going to have salary on the table left, and they're going to be wanting to fill out their lineups with 0 salary remaining. So Chase Elliott, he's the most expensive guy. I could see him having a decent amount of ownership, so I would not mind being underweight on that. But I will be having some Chase Elliott just in case he wins this race, he gets the top 5, leads laps. So he will be in some of my lineups, but he's not someone I'm going to go too heavy on just because of the nature of this track. He's just as likely to get into a wreck as anybody. So Chase Elliott, he's fine, but just be cautious with anyone starting inside the top 20 because they can be pretty risky plays. Joey Logano, he's 10,200. He's actually one of my favorite plays starting up front. I think he's one of the guys you can get away with having a decent amount in your lineups just because, I hate to say it, but he just tends to avoid the wrecks here. Like, he is just very, very good at Talladega. Team Penske as a whole is just very good here and has just been dominant. He's averaging 43 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 11.7, average running position of 10.8, the best drive rating of 100.8, 3 wins, 6 top 5s, averaging the most laps led, and fast laps don't really mean anything here. So Joey Logano, he's one of the guys you can certainly get away with playing up front this week. I mean, if I had to guess who was going to win this race, I would say Joey Logano. I mean, he's done it 3 out of the past 10 races. He's probably going to get a top 5. He's probably going to get a front lead laps. I would not be surprised to see Team Penske training this at the beginning, where Logano's first, Keselowski's second, Blaney's third. They're just so good at super speedways. They're going to work together as a team there. So Joey Logano, if I had to play someone in the top 10, he would be the guy I target. I'm pretty confident in him. Now, again, he's risky because it's not like he is just not going to get in a wreck. I mean, he's just as likely to get into a wreck as anybody in the field right here, especially up front, because Joey Logano is an aggressive blocker. He tends to make some moves that are quite questionable, and that would not surprise me if he caused a wreck. But just based off of history here, this has been a very good track for him. And looking at past optimal lineups since 2016, he's been in 5 out of the past 8 optimal lineups at Talladega. So if I'm going to take a stab at anyone in the top 10 or top 12, whatever, it's going to be Joey Logano for me. He offers you a little bit of PD upside, and he could certainly win this race. So Joey Logano, I do have quite a bit of interest in him. Now, his teammate Ryan Blaney, he comes in at 10,100. He is starting 12th, so he's got more PD upside. And I still like him. I think Team Penske is a solid pairing. So if you wanted to play 2 drivers inside the top 12, I would not play 3 because that's just not how optimal lineups work at Talladega. But if you had to pick 2, I think Logano and Ryan Blaney is a really decent pairing because obviously they're on the same team, Team Penske, and they're just been really good here. They know this track very, very well. And Ryan Blaney's got really solid numbers here. Now, his average DK points, they're going to be hurt a little bit because he has wrecked out of races here, which can happen to anybody. But just overall, when he's not wrecking, this is a pretty good track for him. He does have a win recently. He has an average driver rating of 90.5, average running position of 12.9. He has led laps here before. I think he's an interesting play. He offers you a little bit of PD upside. I think he'll be lower owned than Joey Logano by a good amount, so he'd be a decent pivot if you're just playing one. But I don't mind the Logano-Blaney pairing if you are going to play 2 guys inside the top 15. Do I recommend it? Not much. I mean, I'll have a couple lineups with that, but it's very, very risky. But if they finish 1-2 and then you nail your guys in the very back, it could work out very well for you. And I think Ryan Blaney will be pretty low owned. So I definitely like these guys in tournaments. Would not play them in cash games. But, I mean, Blaney, I think he's a pretty solid option. I'm a big Blaney fan, so I might sound a little biased here. But Blaney's been so good this season. And I know that really doesn't matter, especially at a super speedway. But this is a track he has ran well at. So Ryan Blaney, I do think is a pretty solid tournament option. Clint Bowyer, he's starting 10th. I'd rather play Blaney. I'd rather play Logano. He does have a top 5 here. The past 10 races, 3 top 10s, but starting 10th, there's just a lot of downside here, and he just typically does not run that well at Talladega. He's got an average running position of 20, average driver rating of 72.5, which isn't even close to the other guys around him. Has no wins. Doesn't typically lead laps here, so Clint Bowyer is probably someone I'm not going to have much of. I'm probably going to get ownership to almost the entire field this week just because this track is completely random. If anyone's telling you they can predict Talladega, they're lying to you, but optimal lineup construction will set you up for success. So it's not like I'm just here saying whatever. If you have optimal lineup construction, you're more than likely going to profit here because a lot of people do not know optimal lineup construction. So you can't predict this race, but you can set yourself up for success. But Clint Bowyer, not someone I'm too interested in. Christopher Bell, he comes in at 9,700. He is starting 35th, and he is one of the best plays on this slate. I think he's going to be one of the highest owned plays on the slate. Him, Ty Dillon, Brendan Gaughan, probably going to be the 3 highest owned drivers, and it's for a good reason. I mean, they're just smash plays. I know he's really expensive at 9,700, but look, we don't need dominators here, and he's one of the best PD plays on the slate. PD is a premium. He honestly should be the most expensive driver on the slate, if we're being honest. So Christopher Bell at 9,700. Salary doesn't matter this week. It's very easy to fit him in. I like him a ton. He will be a staple of a lot of my lineups. There's just basically no downside here. He could easily get a top 10, easily get a top 15. He could easily score 60-some points. So Christopher Bell, I like him a ton. We have no track history here at Talladega in the Cup Series, so can't go off of any of that. But the downside is very minimum here. He should get a top 20 at the end of the day if he can avoid a wreck. So Christopher Bell, expect him to be very popular, and he probably should be a staple of all of your lineups. And if you're playing cash, you pretty much 100% have to play Christopher Bell. Brett Keselowski, he comes in at 9,600. He qualified 6th, so he's the last Penske car I like outside of Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, just because he's starting 6th, which means there's more room for error for him. Like Logano and Blaney, they can have a little bit of PD upside, but starting 6th, I mean, Brad Keselowski's going to have to dominate some of this race and win the whole thing basically to be optimal just because there's barely any PD upside here. Now, this has been a very good track for him. I mean, him and Joey Logano have been almost the class of the field here. I mean, they got the 2 best driver ratings. They had the most wins. Keselowski has 2 wins the past 10 races. Logano's got 3. He's got 3 top 5s. He's got the 2nd most laps led. Yeah, he could make the optimal, but I'm not going to play Keselowski with the other Penske cars. So if you're stacking Penske, pick 2 at the absolute max, because really I don't want anyone inside the top 10. I mean, I'll stretch it to 1, absolute max of 2, but there's no chance I'll play 3 inside the top 12 really. So I mean, Blaney, Logano, Keselowski, they're all starting up front. So don't play all of them together. I know I said Team Penske is a decent stack, but you're gonna have to pick 2. And I really don't even want to pick 2. I just want to pick 1. But Keselowski could certainly win this race. He could certainly get up front. He is starting further ahead of Logano and Blaney, but they can make those spots up very quick. I expect them to team up and probably work their way up to the front very quick in this race. So we'll see how it goes. But Keselowski is very risky, starting 6, just because if he gets into a wreck, there's a good chance he's going way into the negative. So just know that is a very risky play. But he is solid in tournaments just because he could win this race and he could certainly get a top 5. But the upside is very limited with Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick, he is starting 5th. All these guys I'm about to talk about are just very, very risky plays, and guys I'm probably going to have almost no ownership on. Yeah, you can sprinkle them in, but I just don't see myself having too much ownership at all on any of these guys. So Harvick starting too close to the front, Kyle Busch to the front, Denny Ham starting way too close to the front, Martin Truex is on the pole, and he's not even good at super speedways. So these guys I'm going to have very minimal ownership on. Harvick, I mean, he has 1 top 5 here the past 10 races, 3 top 10s. He just tends to always get into the wrecks here. He's only averaging 28 DraftKings points per race. Just not someone I'm too interested in this week. Kyle Busch, he's starting 3rd. I mean, there's got to be a lot to go right for Kyle Busch to win this race. He's got to get up front, lead a ton of laps, and pretty much win this race to get into the optimal lineup, which I just don't personally see happening. Could it happen? Yes, but even if he wins the race, it's not even a guaranteed that he'd be in the optimal lineup, just because there's other guys that could get a ton of PD upside and he could only gain 2 spots max. He has no wins here the past 10 races, 2 top 5s, doesn't usually lead a lot of laps, average driving position of 13, average driving of 90. Again, these guys are extremely risky, and you should definitely stay away from them in cash games. Denny Hamlin, he's starting 2nd. He's very good at super speedways, really good at Daytona. He's the past 2 Talladega races. I know he started 40th. I think the last race, finished 3rd. You had to have him to cash, but now he's starting 2nd. He's got to win the race. I want to bet on someone to win the race because, first of all, I think Joey Logano probably wins the race. But Denny Hamlin, I mean, he has to win this race, lead a ton of laps for him to be in the optimal lineup, and chances are he could get into a wreck and get negative 30 points. So Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., these guys I'm probably going to stay away from, especially Truex. He's on the pole, and he's just not even good at super speedways. I mean, yeah, he's getting unlucky because he's always getting into the wrecks, but he's literally always getting into the wrecks. Like, whenever there's a big one, I swear he's in it, and he's getting trashed. He's got an average running position here of 20, average finish of 21.8, drive rating of 73.6, which is the 2nd worst we've seen since Clint Boyer so far. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, only 3 top 20s, only 1.3 laps led per race. I think Truex is a very strong fade. I'm hoping he's popular. If he's 25% owned because he's Truex on the pole at 9K, I'm going to be so happy because, look, if he wins the race, I'll eat the L, but he's a terrible play. Like, there's so much that have to go right for Truex to be in the optimal lineup here. There's no PD upside, which PD is an absolute premium here. So Truex is honestly the best fade candidate for me, because if he gets into a wreck and he's 20% owned, we are going to be very, very happy. So yeah, do not like Truex. Really hate everybody in this 9K tier besides Christopher Bell. Everyone else is just, there's no PD upside really there at all. All right, so going down to the 8K tier, we have Jimmie Johnson, who is starting 4th, and again, he is just starting too close to the front. I mean, I know I keep saying this, but I have to keep saying it because it's the same exact concept. He has to get up front, lead some laps, and win the race to be optimal, because there's just so many guys that are a lot cheaper that have the potential to gain 20, 30 spots. And Jimmie Johnson, I mean, he's more than likely going to fall back, and there's a good chance he can get to a wreck. So I'm not going to be playing the dangerous game of rostering Jimmie Johnson. Will I throw him maybe 1 or 2 lineups at 150? Maybe, just because I want ownership on pretty much almost the entire field. There's some guys I'm going to completely fade. Jimmie Johnson could certainly be one of them. I just don't see it really working out for him. He has 1 top 5 here the past 10 races, 3 top 10s. He's more than likely not going to win this race or dominate. So Jimmie Johnson, another strong fade candidate. Matt Kenseth, he is starting 13th. Recent track history here, the past 6 races. He's got an average DK points of 8.4, average finish of 23.3, no top 5s, no top 10s, 1 top 15, 1 top 20. Another guy you could probably stay away from. You could sprinkle him in because he is starting 13th, which is further back than we've seen in a while. So he could be okay sprinkling in, and maybe he gets a top 5. But other than that, not too interested in Matt Kenseth. And I think this is going to be a quicker video than usual because I can't really talk about momentum this season because that doesn't matter. And then track type form, it's almost similar to this. So it shouldn't be too long of a video, so I'm sure you guys are happy. You don't have to sit here for an hour. But going down to Kurt Busch, he is starting 7th. He's the guy I would have interest in if he didn't qualify so high. I mean, you could sprinkle him in and hope he gets a top 5 and wins the race at this price tag, which is certainly possible because he's pretty good at Talladega and super speedways in general. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 11.5, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 8 top 15s, drive rating of 94.5, which I believe is the 3rd best we've seen, right behind Keselowski and Joey Logano. So, yeah, right above Chase Elliott. So, yeah, Kurt Busch has been very good at Talladega. He's led laps here. He's averaging 13.4 laps led per race. If we look at super speedways, numbers are solid. It drops off a little bit, but still, 6 top 15s, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5. But he's very good at Talladega. So if you want to sprinkle in Kurt Busch as your one guy in the top 10 and hope he's the guy that wins the race, you can certainly do so, but he's a very risky play. Anyone that's starting inside the top 15 is a very risky play. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he comes in at 8,400. This is probably one of my favorite tournament options on the entire slate. You could honestly get away with it in cash games too, but I think he's better suited for tournaments, but I think you could play him in all formats, and that's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I think he's one of the better plays. I mean, he is very good at Talladega. I know we always call him Wrecky because he tends to wreck a lot, but at Talladega, he just usually stays alive the entire race. He's very good at plate races, and he's also won here before too. He has 1 win the past 10 races, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s, 7 top 20s. I like Stenhouse's chance to get into the optimal lineup. I do. He grades out pretty well in projections for me. He's got an average finish of 12.5. He's just been one of the better drivers at Talladega, honestly top 5. And he tends to get up front lead laps almost every single race here and starting 20th. I mean, we have legit 15 PD spot potential, and he could get a top 5. It would not surprise me at all. He's done it 4 times out of the past 10 races, and 60% of the time out of the past 10 races, he's been inside the top 10. So I think Stenhouse is an awesome play this week. One of my favorite tournament options on the entire slate. Now, again, starting 20th, it makes him a little risky just because he's not in the 30s like the other guys. But I like his chances. I think he can work out. I mean, just looking at super speedways overall, he's been very, very good. He's averaging the 2nd most laps led per race, only behind Joey Logano. So, yeah, I think Stenhouse is a very, very good option on this slate, and certainly someone I want ownership to. Now, I'm not saying you play 60% Stenhouse because starting 20th, there is a downside. Now, if he doesn't wreck, I think he absolutely smashes. But again, anyone here can wreck. No one's invincible. So that's why you always want to keep your exposures lower than usual at these types of tracks because, like at Homestead, the entire field's not going to wreck out. So if you wanted to go 100% on someone, you can do it, and hopefully they don't wreck. But at this type of track, everyone's equal here. Everyone can wreck, so don't go too heavy on anybody. But Stenhouse, I do think, is a very, very good option. Alex Bowman, he is starting 8th, 8,200. Not someone I have a lot of interest in. 7 races here. He has 1 top 5, 2 top 10s. He just tends to be one of those guys that gets wrecked. I don't know what it is, but he's got an average finish of 23.6, starting position of 17.4. Not too interested in Alex Bowman. William Byron, he's starting 19th. He's interesting. He's got an average running position here of 13.9, but still, he's just one of those guys, again, that tends to get wrecked. Just tends to get wrecked like Alex Bowman. He's averaging 9.8 DraftKings points per race here. 0 top 5s, 0 top 10s, 0 top 15s, and 0 top 20s in 4 races here. So tough scenes for William Byron here at Talladega so far. Not someone I'm too interested in. I'd much rather play Stenhouse, who's 1 spot behind him, and Stenhouse has just been a very good plate racer. He's proved that. So Byron, do I think he might be popular starting 19th? He might be just because he's William Byron. He tends to get ownership, but not too interested. Not too interested. I will have some exposure because he is 19th. He could move up spots, but there is better plays in the slate. Going down to the 7K tier, we have MDB at 7,800. He is starting 23rd, and I do think he's a decently solid option. Now, his history here, it's awful. I mean, he's gotten wrecked quite a few times here. He has 3 top 20s, but outside of that, no top 15s, no top 10s, no top 5s. But he's okay at super speedways. Now, at Daytona, his numbers have improved, and if you look at track type form, it's brought him up a little bit. He's averaging 30 DraftKings points per race, 3 top 10s, 3 top 15s, 5 top 20s. He has actually got up front 1 race. So MDB starting 23rd. Look, I like Team Penske. He's Team Penske affiliate. He's not like fully Team Penske, but Wood Brothers Racing's pretty much there. So I'd like Penske this week, so I do have interest in MDB. Someone I'm going to get ownership to. It's not like I'm going to go too overweight because he is starting 23rd. If he was in the 30s, I'd be all about it. But starting 23rd, it makes it a little bit risky. But he's certainly someone you can have ownership to because he's got that top 10 potential. So MDB is someone you can certainly get into your lineups, not to go too heavy on, but someone I don't mind getting in. But my favorite play in the entire slate is Brendan Gaughan at 7,600. He is starting 39th. Honestly, he should be like 10K. He is the best play on the slate. I expect him to be the highest owned driver on the slate. And I don't mind being overweight on the highest owned driver on the slate. Like, I know you don't want to go 100% on anybody in NASCAR, but I feel like I want to with Brendan Gaughan. I'm not going to, but if there's one person at a lock button on the slate, it's going to be Brendan Gaughan. The guy is just the plate racing GOAT. Not really, but this is the guy I tend to always play at plate races because he always tends to qualify in the back and he tends to get a strong finish. Like, he's just very good at plate races. Starting 39th, there is no downside here. If he finished dead last, I think he scores 3 points, which, again, could outscore the guys up front by 30. There's no downside with Brendan Gaughan. At Daytona this year in February, he started 39th and he finished 7th, like one of the best, if not the best play in the entire slate. So Brendan Gaughan, love him, love him, love him. He will be my highest owned driver. He's averaging 33 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 22, which doesn't look great, but it's like almost 20 spots gained. And he's got 1 top 10, 2 top 15s, 3 top 20s. If you look at track type form at super speedways, numbers are elite, averaging 43 DraftKings points per race, 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, 6 top 20s, averaging 12 place differential spots per race. Brendan Gaughan, I think it was Talladega last year, he was getting pushed to the front. He was literally in first place, and then his car flipped over, which he ended up crashing out. But yeah, Brendan Gaughan, he's an excellent play. He is mispriced. He should be right around where Christopher Bell is, if we're being honest. So, I mean, all these guys should be really expensive. So we're getting good prices on all of them. So Brendan Gaughan, absolutely love him. I think he's a tremendous play. Bubba Wallace, he is starting 24th. He is 7,400. He's a guy you can use. I mean, I'm not too overly excited about it because he's starting 24th compared to guys in the 30s. But he's fine. I mean, I'll have some Bubba Wallace, and he's just been looking really good this year. I know it doesn't mean anything because this is a whole different track, but I don't mind Bubba. You can sprinkle it in. If we're looking at track type forms, you got an average finish of 20, 1 top 5, 6 top 20s. I think there's a good chance he can move up as long as he avoids carnage. So, Bubba Wallace, a guy you can play. Daniel Suarez, he is starting 37th. We got to play some Daniel Suarez this week, guys. I know it feels gross even mentioning that, but look, his lawnmower is going to look a little bit better than usual this week because of the way this track races. He'll probably be in the draft unless he loses the draft somehow, which would not surprise me because he's Daniel Suarez. But as long as he's in the draft and he avoids the wrecks early on, I think we can get a top 20 finish here, for being honest. And he's starting 37th, so do not mind Daniel Suarez. These numbers don't really mean too much because he's in different equipment, but then again, equipment doesn't really matter too much here. But he's got an average running position of 15.3, 2 top 15s, 5 top 20s. Daniel Suarez is starting 37th. He should be pretty popular on this slate. I mean, look, Gaughan's 39th, Suarez 37th, Dillon 33rd. You can pretty much just stack those back guys there if you want to. So, that's my spot for a second. Okay, Daniel Suarez. I think I'm done talking about Daniel Suarez. So, yeah, I like him. He can move up a ton of spots. Dillon, he comes in at 7,100. He is starting 33rd. And he, again, is one of my favorite plays in the entire slate. Like Brendan Gaughan, Dillon, they're just all tremendous plays here. And I wouldn't mind if they were my highest owned drivers at all. I think they're going to be the highest owned drivers on the slate. And it's for good reason. I mean, Dillon's like low-key the Talladega master. He's averaging 44 DraftKings points per race, which is insane. He's got an average finish of 13.5. He's got 3 top 15s, 6 top 20s, and 6 races here. It's not like that was 10 races. 100% of the time, he has finished inside the top 20 so far. He's averaging 10.7 place differential spots per race. If you're looking at track type form at super speedways, he's just really good at those as well. 44 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 12.7, 8 top 20s and 9 races. Just one time he has not been inside the top 20. I think Dillon's one of the best players on the slate, and he's going to be very high owned. I mean, him, Brendan Gaughan, I expect to be 2 of, if not the 2 highest owned drivers on this slate, and I do not mind being overweight in the field on them. There's almost no downside here. There's a little bit more downside with Dillon because he's starting 33rd compared to 39th and 37th, but he's just always there at the end. He knows how to avoid the wrecks. He sits back for a while, and yeah, Dillon's an excellent play, someone I'm definitely going to want a lot of. So, do like Erik Jones, he is starting 18th. He comes in at 7K. Hasn't been too great for him at Talladega. I just spit all over my computer. It's gross. Goodness. But let me just make sure my camera's still HD. Okay, it is. So Erik Jones, he's averaging 5.3 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of nearly 30. Tends to get caught up in these wrecks. He does have 2 top 20s. Starting 18th, there's not a lot of room for upside here. Not someone I'm going to have too much exposure to. And I hate just keeping these super short, but that's all I can say. Equipment does not really matter here. It's all about starting spots. If you're starting near the front, I don't like you as much. If you're in the back, I like you a lot. Erik Jones is in the middle, so he's kind of, he's a guy you can throw in, but not someone I'm overly excited about. Tyler Reddick, he is starting 16th. Rookie here, not a lot of interest in Tyler Reddick. He absolutely balled out for us at Homestead. That was amazing. He scored like 80-some points. Incredible. Like, absolutely incredible from Tyler Reddick. The guy's just a straight baller. I mean, he's out driving that car. I mean, he's driving so much better than Daniel Hemrick did in that car. So I'm really liking Tyler Reddick. I'm becoming a big fan. But this week, starting 16th, not really too interested in him. But Aric Almirola, he's starting 15th at 6,800. Now, he was a guy I had a lot of interest in heading into the week because he is very, very good at Talladega, like extremely good. I don't know what it is, but he's always there at the end of the race. Now, the problem is he's starting 15th. I was hoping he's going to be in the 20s, right around where Stenhouse is. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and I also was hoping Ryan Newman would be in the 20s because I really had interest in them as guys in the 20s I'd wanted to play. So now it's really going to be hard to fit these guys in, but Aric Almirola, he's been so good at Talladega. He's averaging nearly 50 DraftKings points per race. Average finish of 9.6, which I believe is best out of anybody. Let me just sort this by average finish really quick. Yeah, Aric Almirola, best average finish of 9.6. Let me fix that again. Okay, and then he's got an average running position of 16.2. He has 1 win, 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s. That's incredible. That's the most we've seen so far. 7 top 15s, 9 top 20s, guys. 9 top 20s. 90% of the time he's finished inside the top 20. Averaging 10.5 place differential spots per race. He's actually been in the optimal lineup 4 out of the 8 past the optimal lineups. That's 50% of the time he's been in the optimal, which is incredible. Now, starting 15th, it's a little rough, but he's got the potential there still to get into the top 5. He's just been so good here. I think he's going to be somewhat low owned just because of where he's starting at 15th, but he's one of my favorite tournament options just because he's just been so good here. Is he risky starting 15th? Yes, but him and Stenhouse, I mean, I think they're both really solid tournament options, as well as Ryan Newman, just from where they're starting. So Aric Almirola, I like the price tag. I like his history here. Someone I do have interest in, just because he's been so good at Talladega. And Ryan Newman, he hasn't been as good, but he's also been very good at Talladega. He is starting 14th. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race here. He's been in the past 2 optimal lineups here. He's got 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 7 top 15s, averaging 6.4 place differential spots per race. Ryan Newman's just one of those guys that's always there at the end. If we look at super speedways, he's just always there at the end. Like I just said, he's got 9 top 20s the past 10 races, 9 top 15s, 9 top 15s, 8 top 10s. 80% of the time, he's been inside the top 10, 4 top 5s. He just knows how to stay alive long enough, and then at the end of the race, he knows how to just get inside the top 10, top 15. He's got an average finish of 12.1, 44 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 8.7. I was looking at Aric Almirola, which I believe is the best average finish out of everybody. Let's just see really quick. Yeah, Ryan Newman has the best average finish of anybody the past 10 races at super speedways. So I know he's starting 14th, which does make him risky, but he's one of those guys in tournaments that I would not hate having ownership to just because he just knows how to stay alive to the very end. All right, so Corey Lajoie, he comes in at 6,500. He's starting 25th. I was hoping he's going to be in the 30s just because he is really good at staying alive at the very end of these super speedways. So 4 races at Talladega. He's got an average finish of 19.3, average running position of 30. And that just kind of goes to show you that these guys just ride around in the back, and then once the guys crash, they just move up at the very end. So like Ryan Newman, he's got an average running position of 24.4, but he's got an average finish of 13.1. He stays alive till the end, and he passes the wrecked cars. Same with Corey Lajoie, average finish of 30, average finish inside the top 20. Now, if we're looking at super speedways in general, he's kind of been the GOAT here, not at Talladega, but just in general at super speedways. He's averaging the most DraftKings points per race, only behind John Hunter Nemechek, but he only has a 2-race sample size, so I'm not really going to count that. But Corey Lajoie, he's averaging the most DraftKings points, 47.5, average finish of 16.5, 3 top 10s, 6 top 20s. Starting 25th, I was hoping he's going to be in the 30s, so that's kind of unfortunate, but you can still sprinkle him in because I do think that's going to make him decently low owned. And if he could just sneak in the top 15, you'll probably be looking pretty good in tournaments. Now, there's other guys I like a lot more than Corey Lajoie this week, but I think he's solid for tournaments, and he's actually averaging 17 place differential spots per race at Talladega, which is honestly a little bit insane. So going down to Michael Mcdowell, he's better at Daytona than he is at Talladega, but he did make an optimal lineup here recently. He did get a top 5, which, look, that's the kind of things that can happen in super speedways. Is Michael McDowell going to get a top 5 at any other track besides Daytona? More than likely not. But at Talladega, 9 races, he's got average of 14.8 DraftKings points per race, average finish of nearly 30, 1 top 5, only 2 top 20s. I prefer him more at Daytona than I do at Talladega, but you can still sprinkle him in. He's actually been running really well this season. I know it doesn't mean too much at Talladega, but he's fine. If we're looking at super speedways, averaging 23 DraftKings points per race, 2 top 5s, 5 top 15s. I mean, he's pretty solid. Mostly that's from Daytona, which he drives much better at, but Mcdowell's fine. I mean, there's guys I'd like more, but he's okay. Now, one of the more popular plays on the slate, and one of my more favorite plays on the slate, is probably going to be Ryan Preece. He comes in at 31st at 6,200, and he only has a 2-race sample size at Talladega, but the 2 times he's raced here, he's absolutely smashed. He's averaging 55 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 10. He's got 2 top 20s and 1 top 5, 1 top 10, obviously, averaging nearly 20 place differential spots per race. If we expand this to super speedways, he's got 6 races here. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 17.7, 4 top 20s, 2 top 15s, 2 top 10s. Ryan Preece, pretty good play starting 31st, can certainly crack the top 20. And yeah, I expect him to be pretty popular. He's certainly viable in cash games and tournaments, whatever. Probably going to be one of my more high-owned drivers on the entire slate. Cole Custer, he comes in at 28th. He is 6,000. We have 2 races at super speedways for him, and they have not gone well. Negative 17.5 DraftKings points per race. But he is starting 28th, so I do have some interest in him. Not like overly excited about Cole Custer, but look, he should be able to get a ton of spots as long as he avoids wrecks. And if he avoids wrecks, I have a hard time seeing him not being solid for your lineup. So there's not much I can say about him, but he's starting in the back, which makes him in play for me. Austin Dillon, he is starting 17th. Past 10 races at Talladega, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s, 6 top 20s. Pretty good numbers. The only problem is he is starting 17th, which is just a little bit too high for me. He's going to have to probably crack the top 15, top 10. I know he's really cheap, so he's going to be a good value, but salary does not mean anything here. You basically just want the guys that score the most points. And starting 17th, I have a hard time seeing that happen, especially if he gets into a wreck. So be very cautious with Austin Dillon. Could you throw him in a few lineups? Sure, but I don't expect too much out of Austin Dillon here. Chris Buescher, he is starting 21st. Typically a guy I like to target at super speedways, averaging 30 DraftKings points per race here at Talladega. Problem is he is starting 21st, and he has 3 top 20s and 9 races here. But you go to super speedways in general, he's got 2 top 5s, 4 top 15s, 5 top 20s, but he typically starts lower than 21st. So he's in a tough spot. Probably not going to have too much interest in him. Will I sprinkle him in? Sure, but outside of that, not a big standout for me. John Hunter Nemechek, he has 2 races at super speedways, and he is averaging 48 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 11.5, 2 top 15s. He's actually been pretty solid, so he's fine, but not someone I'm overly excited about starting 22nd, but he's a guy you can sprinkle in. I know I keep saying that, but it's really all I can say. There's no track history here, and he's a rookie, and he's starting a little bit closer than I'd like, so he's like an play. Timmy Hill, starting 38th, 5,300. Look, numbers suck here, 2 races, but I don't care. I'm stacking the back. Will I have some Timmy Hill exposure? Sure. Do I think a lot of people are going to play him? Probably not, which is fine with me because, look, I know it's never fun rostering Timmy Hill, and certainly something could happen to his car, but starting 38th, there's a good chance he could move up a lot of spots, and I don't think he's going to be that high owned. So would I play him in cash games? That's iffy just because he's Timmy Hill, but in tournaments, yeah, certainly. Just anybody in the back is playable because the cars are pretty much evened out through the entire field here. Brennan Poole, he's starting 27th, starting too high compared to the other guys. Will I sprinkle him in? He'll probably make a couple on us, but outside of that, not too crazy about it. Now, he has 2 races at super speedways. They have gone well for him, averaging 47.5 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 17, and 2 top 20s. Fine in tournaments, wouldn't play him in cash, but we'll sprinkle in some Brennan Poole. Garrett Smith, he is starting dead last in 40th. Numbers here at super speedways are not pretty, which, I know he's a scrub and we like to stack the back, but it's still just not been very good for Garrett Smith. He's averaging 9.5 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 34.6. Not even 1 top 20. It's been rough for Garrett Smith, but he's starting 40th. There's no way to go but up here. Nowhere to go but up. If the worst case scenario is he scores 4 points, literally the worst. And that could end up being better than Truex if he wrecks. Truex could end up getting negative 30-some points. So he would be a much better than play than Truex. Not saying it's the most likely scenario that he outscores Truex, but it's possible. And Garrett Smith can honestly score a lot of these guys starting inside the top 20 if they happen to wreck. So I will have him in lineups just because he's starting 40th. It's never fun playing Garrett Smith, but look, he's starting dead last, so he is certainly in play. And all of these guys are in play. I know it's crazy. I usually skip all these guys, but the way this track is, you can play all these guys. Joey Gay is starting 36. He's averaging 30 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 25.3. That's about 10 spots gained. We will take that for sure. JJ Yeley starting 34th. Averaging 21 DraftKings points per race at Talladega. You can play him. Look, there's a lot of room for upside for these guys. Quinn Half. I hate Quinn Half, but he's in play starting 32nd. He can move up spots. BJ McLeod. Hate BJ McLeod. Will I play him starting 30th? Maybe a couple of lineups, not too excited about it, but he does have an average of 24.7 DraftKings points per race at super speedways, average finish of 26.3. Not the worst in the world, not too excited about it. Gray Golding, 4,500, starting 29th. He's starting a little bit higher than I'd like him to, but in one race at a super speedway, he did get 33.5 DraftKings points, 24 average finish. It's not terrible. I prefer the other guys like Gase and Yaley because they're in 36th and 34th, but all these guys are fine. You can stack the back here, and so I'm saying salary is no issue because if you wanted to stack Joey Gase, JJ Yaley, Garrett Smithley, Timmy Hill, Ryan Preece, Gaughan, I mean, your most expensive guy there is 7,600, and look, that's a fine lineup. Like, it's totally fine. It's a safe route too. But yeah, it's pretty much going to be it for the driver-by-driver breakdown. The basis of this was just to stack the back and pretty much avoid the guys up front. Yes, you can take stabs at a few guys, but keep it minimal. I mean, my favorite targets up top would probably be Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, maybe a Keselowski. And then I know Stenhouse really is in the back, but starting 20th, and I think he's a really solid option as well. And then the 6K guys we talked about, Newman, Almirola, but pretty much the premise here is to stack the back, and you should have success here. And like I said, your lineups are probably going to be in the garbage for most of the day, so don't tweet me mid-race saying I suck. Wait until after the race, when hopefully there's a big one, and all of our lineups look pretty good. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but in 2018, I think, there was no big one. I think there was one car that crashed. But still, the optimal lineup had a guy starting 4th and then guys in the 20s and 30s, so it's still going to be fine either way, more than likely. But hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Really appreciate it. I'm going to have my article posted on Patreon soon. I'm going to go work on that right now. Projections are actually already up. And rankings will be out. And all that good stuff. And you can hit me up in Discord if you want. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Live stream on Sunday. And I'll see you then.